Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm a librarian at Central Library. Today I want to present another episode of our Spark Stories series. Each month, we highlight the story of a different community leader and the spark which inspired them to get involved in their community. Today we're featuring Renee Hardman, who's the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Iowa, a city councilwoman in the city of West Des Moines, and truly an icon of civic engagement in the state of Iowa. Over the last 40 years that she's been in the city, she's served over 20 different community organizations in various roles, including as a volunteer, a president, a board member, and a CEO. This is her Spark Story. Can you tell me about the work you do in the community?
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth, and I really appreciate you having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here at the Des Moines Public Library sharing a little bit about my journey and my story. And currently I am the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Iowa, one of the premier mentoring organizations in the world that set forth to defend the potential of young people. And we do that by matching caring, compassionate adults with young people to, again, as I said, defend their potential. I've been involved with the organization for well over 30 years. I started 2 days after I graduated from Drake University in the early 80s, becoming a big, and I got a little girl who was 6.5 years of age, and she was from Africa. She was from Sierra Leone. And I mentored her for 10 years until she graduated from East High School. And later years, I served on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters for about 8 years. I was Big Sister of the Year. So I have a really wide affinity and passion for that. And to come full circle and to serve as a CEO, I sometimes have to pinch myself for being able to, being granted the privilege to serve a mission that aligns itself with my life purpose. I also publicly am a West Des Moines City Councilwoman, and I was elected 3.5 years ago. I ran and made a little bit of history being the first African American City Councilwoman in the 125-year, at that time, history of the city. And I really enjoy that. Local politics is very near and dear. You're close to the constituents that you serve. You get calls from anywhere between sidewalks to whether you can have chickens in your backyard, to development and lighting and all of those kinds of things. So you learn a lot, and it really is a pleasure serving City of West Des Moines as a City Councilwoman.
Thank you so much for telling us about those two organizations. I know you worked with so many other organizations as well. How did you decide to focus the majority of your efforts on these two things?
Yeah. You know, as a young girl growing up, I was raised in a single parent home, Elizabeth, a mom that raised 3 daughters. And one of her guiding principles was that you're to always give back, and to really, wherever you go, look behind and see who is there at the footsteps waiting to climb those steps that you've already climbed. And so that's really been a guiding principle for me. And my passion has always been around service and really around youth. And the City Council is just a little higher level of service. Quite frankly, I was asked by a group of individuals to consider. I never thought I'd run for office, but I looked into it and really kind of felt that there were good people serving, but there were voices missing on the table, and that is for women and people of color. And I thought it would be an opportunity to serve the city and offer some other perspectives that I think might be helpful as we go about the business of doing city work. Other boards that I've served on: Youth Emergency Shelter Services, I've been on the United Way Board, and Hospice of Central Iowa. And so, I really look at the mission of that organization and really try to align itself with the things that I care about. And that really is the quality of life for folks, and providing opportunities for individuals that are sometimes marginalized or seem as if their voices have been silenced, and that they need a lift up, not a handout. And if I feel I can make a difference, I say yes. If I feel like it's not the best place for me, and that I probably can't make the best difference, I choose to say no.
Do you recall a specific experience which kind of changed how you see or helped you evolve as a leader and see, why it's so important to spend your time doing this?
I think my whole life has been a journey of so many steps that have gotten me where I am today. I think the whole notion of being raised in Chicago area by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, all that you can remember, to make sure that her girls were able to have a roof over their head, to be able to go to college, which we all 3 did, and to make a life of ourselves. I think those kinds of occurrences that you see every day build fortitude and strength. And it really kind of builds this humble spirit within you that, life can be better if you have someone along to lift you up and to help you. I made it through having mentors. My mom, as I said, worked 2 jobs. So there were mentors from the church and mentors from the community and teachers and the schools. And all of them had a little piece of shaping me into the woman I am today. And so that really probably has been a formidable life experience that I think has guided who I am, what I do, what I choose to do, and the why that I do it. So because I benefited so much from a village raising me, I really subscribe to this notion that it takes a village to raise other kids. It takes a village to help others see the light, and it takes a village to help expose folks to things that they may not ever be exposed to before in their life. So just being raised by a strong mom who instilled values, having a humble life, appreciating all the blessings that come from hard work and dedicating yourself, surrounding yourself around people that also, want to lift you up and help you along the way, I think has really guided my success in life.
So is there a book that has been particularly influential in helping you to kind of make your decisions about what you want to do?
Well, I knew, I also lived in Georgia, when my parents got divorced, we moved to Georgia and we stayed in Georgia, and I had a grandmother who, our Saturday activity was going to the library. And we would get like a nickel for every book that we read. And I loved us going to the library. We'd all check out books, and we'd get an ice cream cone on the way home, and we'd sit and we'd read books. And every weekend, every Saturday, we went back to the library. So I remember having this jar where we put nickels in the jar, and I accumulated a lot of nickels. Now that's years and years ago, but I will share with you a book that I keep on my bookshelf every single day, and I look at it almost every day. And it's this book called I Am Enough. And it is kind of a kid's book, but it really is an adult book. And I remember when I was in Barnes & Noble and I ran into that book, and it was beautifully displayed on the shelf, and it made me take some steps back to go get the book. And I read the book right there while I was at Barnes & Noble. And the next day I went back and I bought 30 of the books because I have them to give out to friends that just says, I am enough. And it's about a book that pours into your inner spirit. It pours into your sense of self, your sense of confidence, and your sense of knowing that regardless of who you are or where you're at, you are enough. You are enough to do and be whatever your life chooses, whatever you choose in your life. So I like that mantra. I like the illustrations of the book. It's beautiful, it's colorful, it has all kinds of kids from all walks of life, even children with some disabilities in the book. It's very well illustrated. And it is an adult mantra that sometimes when I'm in a moment of self-doubt, because we're all human and we get there, I look at that book and I say, I am enough. I am enough. And so it's about this belief in yourself. And I really think that's really the success of most people, is that you really need to believe in yourself and believe that you can. I remember when I ran for city council, there were a number of people thought that the time wasn't right. I had not served the city in enough capacities, although I'd served on 20 plus boards in the community. and that, going against this particular incumbent would be a defeat. And so I just remember thinking, no, believe in yourself and go out there and work hard and do it. And that is what I did. But if I kind of caved into a lot of the thoughts of some other folks, I would have probably allowed myself to miss my blessing. So you really do need to believe that you are enough, and believe that through hard work and dedication, that you can prevail. I'll tell you a story. I was running for office, and I was knocking on some doors, and as most people have to do, and this was pre-COVID, and there's a man that told me that that West Des Moines does not elect colored people. And I kind of stopped in my tracks, and I'm like, colored people? Of course, I knew what that term meant, and I hadn't heard it referenced to me in a long time. And so it really kind of took me aback being in the first phases of my door knocking, and I was like, well, this isn't going to be any fun. And I remember getting in my car and really saying, that this is not going to be a deterrent for me. It really kind of propelled me forward, because I thought about what my ancestors had overcome and what they did to just allow me the ability to walk, the ability to walk and knock on doors, the ability to be on a ballot. They lost their lives. They were lynched. They were hosed down. They were spit on. And so when I thought about what my ancestors did and what I'm doing, it paled in comparison. And so that little conversation at that door, as painful as it was to hear him say that, it really propelled my campaign forward, because I leaned on the strength of my ancestors. I leaned on the strength of what they've overcome to allow me the privilege to stand on their shoulders and run for elected office.
When you mentioned that you're human, that you've had those days where you have self-doubt, where you struggle, can you tell us a little bit about how you've overcome some of those struggles in your life as you've grown?
Yeah, I think it is important, Elizabeth, that we share with the audience that life is always going to be full of struggles. Life is not a utopia. It's peaks and valleys. And I certainly have had my fair share of them in my lifetime. I remember too, when I was first graduated from Drake, I majored in psychology, and I applied for a job to work with the mentally ill. I'd been there working part-time for years, and this was to run the facility. And I remember I was overlooked, and they chose another person. This is right out of college. And the requirements of the job said you needed to have a degree, and this person that got selected did not have their degree as of yet, was getting close to it. So at that young, very age, in your early 20s, it's the first time that you have really faced a situation where you just didn't want it to go unchecked. And so I got the courage to challenge the system and wrote to the CEO of the organization that was in Ames at that time, and just wrote a letter about how I felt about being overlooked, and that I thought it was sexist, and I thought it was racist, and I wanted them to look into it. And they did, and they acknowledged their ways and acknowledged that that was not the appropriate decision. So can you imagine at 20-something years of age, graduating from college, your first job that you apply for, this major job to run this care facility to be with mentally ill, and you have to challenge the system. So that situation taught me that silence gets you nowhere, and that you do need to speak up, and speak up for your own rights, and let your voice be heard. And so that's when why running for city council, I ran this campaign saying I want everyone's voice to be of equal importance, not just the wealthy, not just the rich, not just the people that have all the money, but the folks that feel like they can't even come to City Hall because their voice might appear to be insignificant. So I learned at an early age that life is full of disappointments, it's full of struggles, but you still have to go back to believing and being courageous and not allowing anyone to silence your voice.
Speaking to the people who maybe have not started the process of kind of being involved or doing good in the community, I'm sure for many people it can be really scary to believe in themselves. Can you talk about maybe some suggestions for, getting started, finding mentors, finding a path forward to learn how to do good in this community?
Yeah. I think it really starts from, like you are suggesting, Elizabeth, it starts with yourself first. And it starts with you acknowledging that, having a mentor in your life can be helpful, and finding a trusted friend, and really just saying, these are some goals that I have in life. Would you be willing to spend, once a month with me for 35, 40 minutes for me to talk about some of my goals and aspirations, and how might you provide some advice for me to get where I need to go? So it's getting out of your comfort zone. And I want to say this too, because I think this is really important. It's that if you are never out of your comfort zone, you are not growing. Growth comes from getting out of your comfort zone and doing something different that you've not done before. So I would say not be afraid to ask. You might want to start with a trusted advisor, but someone that is in a position of influence. And then I would also ask yourself and take some time to reflect upon what brings you joy and what are your passions. Is it the elderly? Is it working with animals? Is it working with children? Is it working with refugees? Is it working with whomever that might be? And then, go to United Way and look up all of their funded partners and look at those organizations that have missions that are aligned itself with your passion. And you go to that organization and you say, I am Renee Hardman. I have a passion for young people, and what you might need a volunteer. And I'm telling you, there's probably not one nonprofit that would not welcome that kind of a call, because there are always opportunities to serve. So I think you need to really, first of all, examine within yourself where your passion resides. What is it that you like to do? And then, assertively go out there and find that organization that is in alignment. And I think those are a couple of things that will kickstart your civic engagement and your involvement in making a difference in the life of another.
Is there anything else you want to share with viewers about your passions, the work you do in the community, or any other advice or suggestions you have?
Yeah, well, I will do a shameless plug that if you ever have a need to work with the youth, we're always in need of mentors. We have 120-something kids on the waiting list looking for an adult to defend their potential. So you can always look at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Iowa, and we'd welcome you into the family. But I would just say that, I'd like to end with a quote that I've heard, and that kind of has guided me too, is that, we are given two the most important days of our lives. And the first day is when we were born, and the second day is when we find out our purpose and our why. Those are the two greatest days of one's life. And so I say, really try to figure out your why. What is your purpose in life? What would you want your legacy to be? What drives you? What brings you joy? And what makes your heart sing when you're engaged in a particular activity? And I'm so grateful that I found out my why some years ago, and my why was trying to be a role model to young people. I didn't just wake up and said, I want to be a role model. It was just an evolution of the things that I was drawn to because they gave me joy. And so I think we all need to reflect, and I think COVID gives us all that opportunity in our downtime to really do some self-reflection and ask ourselves, what is my why? You may not know the answer today, but I promise you, if you keep asking yourself and deeply trying to figure out what is your joy and where's your passion, it'll lead you to your why. And I think that's when you have lived a purposeful life. It's when you can answer that question.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Renee Hardman's story, and that you'll join us again next month for another episode of Spark Stories.